I was looking through some old photos and I found a picture of a Bionicle that my cousin and I made for the Lego magazine. And I got to thinking about how cool Bionicle was and how much Bionicle impacted my childhood. And as an adult now, I think back on those things and wonder what was it that made it so special. I recently did some research about Bionicle and I learned things I never knew before, and it makes me appreciate the toys so much more than I ever did. Because the Bionicle story is actually a fairly touching story, a story that really brings beauty to the thing that I had as a kid and makes me wish I still had them now. I found out that Bionicle saved Lego, which was kind of a crazy thing to find out. 'Cause when I think of Lego in the late 90s, I think of a dominant, untouchable toy brand. The sets, the minifigures. It felt like Lego had always existed and always would. But behind the scenes, by the late 1990s, Lego was in a genuine crisis. By 2003, heavy diversification and debt load over 800 million meant they were on the brink of bankruptcy. So what happened? They expanded it into everything: theme parks, video games, clothing, watches, software. They moved away from their core product and they kept adding new specialized pieces that weren't compatible with older sets, alienating the fans who'd grown up with the brand. In 1998, the Lego Group had its first ever financial loss, eventually laying off 1,000 employees. They tried to course correct with licensed products. Star Wars sets launched in 1999 and helped, but licensing was expensive. Lego was paying out huge fees on every set just to use the IP. They needed something original, something they owned completely, something that could build a universe from scratch. What they needed and what they were about to accidentally create was Bionicle. In 2001, a man named Christian Faber, the former art director, helped create Lego Bionicle. But the origin of his involvement goes back further than that. In 1986, when Faber was hired to work at the marketing agency that partnered with Lego, he also discovered he had a benign brain tumor.
And
He
thinking
was
about
20
this,
years
I
old.
just landed my dream job at the agency, and it was this amazing world of creativity and advertising, and everything was open there. And at the same time, my life was sort of getting shut down from the inside. So I think that double-sided experience has actually shaped my way of thinking.
He spent years on medication managing it, and during that time, he started imagining the pills he was taking as tiny warriors, little fighters going into his body to battle the thing that was threatening him from the inside. The entire foundational concept of Bionicle, elemental heroes, each with a specific power, going into a corrupted world to fight a darkness that has put the Great Spirit to sleep, came from a man imagining a medication fighting his brain tumor. Faber described Bionicle as always being about yin and yang. He said, when you are in your darkest moments, something powerful will trigger a new direction. That philosophy, darkness and light in constant tension, hope persisting inside the hardest circumstances, is woven into every layer of the Bionicle story. The early concept was called Boneheads of Voodoo Island. Alistair Swinnerton built upon Faber's original ideas and created Bionicle's massive backstory, eventually developing the Polynesian-inspired mythology, the island of Matanui, the Toa, the masks. Faber later changed the name to Bionicle and adapted the yin-yang symbol for the new logo to represent the structure of the universe that the characters inhabit, and a way of visualizing that all people are part of one whole. The name is a mix of the words biological and chronicle. Again, a symbol to a living story. And it was learning these things that really gave me a deeper appreciation of the toy that defined my childhood. And as an adult now, being able to understand the beauty of the origins of it. Bionicle had a limited launch in late 2000 and went global on July 1st, 2001. And from the beginning, they told a story first. Lego hired writers to create a fantasy universe and a narrative that flowed like a river. I remember this as a kid. I wasn't just getting a toy, it was a piece of a world, a character with a name, an element, and a destiny, a mask with specific powers. Tahu was the Toa of fire. His mask gave him control over flames. His enemy was the infected Rahi creatures controlled by the Makuta. There was a reason he existed, a story he was part of. This involved a full spectrum of storytelling and marketing: a website, books, TV shows, films, video games, comics, even Nike trainers, and a 50-page style guide to ensure every element of the evolving story matched LEGO standards. The CD-ROM that came inside the boxes, the Matanui online game, a fully voiced chapter-by-chapter flash game that told the story of a Mataron named Takua exploring the island before the Toa arrived. For 2001, this was extraordinary. Kids were going online to continue a story they started with a physical toy. The transmedia loop was closed before most companies knew what transmedia meant. In 2001 alone, Bionicle shipped over 190 million toys and grossed 160 million in its first year. Bionicle accounted for 25% of LEGO's total revenue and 100% of its profits. The rest of LEGO's catalog was breaking even at best. Bionicle was carrying the entire company on his back. Author David Robertson later put that without the sales and profits of Bionicle, the company would not have survived. And then I started looking into the lore of Bionicle because I remembered a little bit, but I didn't remember everything. So I started doing a little bit more research. And the surface story is the 6 elemental heroes called the Toa, and they arrived on an island called Matanui. They each control an element: fire, water, ice, earth, air, stone, and they wore masks called Konohi that gave them special powers. Their mission is to defeat the evil Makuta, who has put the great spirit Matanui into a deep sleep and sent darkness across the island. That's what I understood as like an 8-year-old, and that alone was compelling enough to sell 190 million toys. Something I did not remember, or maybe I never knew, was Matanui, the great spirit the entire story revolves around, was not just a god figure. He was a giant robot, an actual physical colossal robot created by the great beings to explore the universe. The island of Matanui, where the Toa live, where the Mataron built their villages, where the entire first arc of the story takes place, is the surface of the robot's face. The robot is lying on the ocean floor, unconscious. The Mataron are literally living inside and on top of a sleeping god machine. The basic concept of Bionicle is that a big robot crashes down because the cells in his body are fighting for control. He goes to sleep in the ocean, and the parts of his body above water become islands. The Toa are essentially antibodies. The Mataron are the cells. The darkness spreading across the island is a disease. It's Faber's tumor metaphor, made literal, made mythological, made into a universe spanning a decade of storytelling. When you finally get to the later story arcs, and this took years of comics, movies, and novels to reveal, Makuta Pterodax doesn't just put Matanui to sleep, he takes over the robot body entirely, trapping Matanui's spirit inside the mask of life and blasting it into outer space. So your god is now a spirit trapped in a mask, floating through space, while the villain is piloting his physical body like it's a mech suit, with millions of Mataron living inside unaware. It's not a children's toy storyline. That is a mythology, and that is a genuinely complex, layered philosophical science fantasy. And it was delivered across McDonald's Happy Meal inserts, comic books, direct-to-video movies, and plastic canisters from the toy aisle at Target. The 3 virtues, unity, duty, destiny, were the governing philosophy of the Mataron people. The design of their symbol was inspired by the letter B and the yin-yang symbol, representing that all beings are a part of one whole. So Bionicle ended in 2010. Low sales, LEGO said. The story had grown too complex for new audiences to enter. Despite a planned 20-year tenure, the theme was discontinued, rebooted in 2015 for 2 more years, and then essentially retired. But it didn't die. Not really. The generation that grew up with those toy canisters is now in their late 20s and 30s. And the Bionicle fan community is one of the most active, most dedicated, most creatively productive fan communities in all of toy history. Fan-made games, original music, commissioned art, ongoing novels written by the original story writer Greg Farshtey for free for the fans. Because what Bionicle gave that generation wasn't just a toy, it was a complete world. One with philosophy baked into its name: unity, duty, destiny. One with a creation myth, a cosmology, a villain with a genuine menace, heroes with genuine purpose, and a story that trusted kids to follow something complicated and rewarding over the years. Underneath it all, there's a man who was 20 years old, sitting with a brain tumor diagnosis, imagining tiny warriors in his medication fighting the darkness. And he decided to share that fight with the world.